evening, everybody. We're going to get started. Good evening. So how we're going to do the meeting tonight, we're going to get started right away. As a reminder, if you have your cell phones, please put them on silent. I will do the same myself. We have a large agenda, so with each agenda item, we're going to take a couple questions from the audience and move on to the next item, and then we'll have open questions at the end if there are more questions on the same topic. Okay? So I'm going to call the meeting to order. It's 5 o'clock, Tuesday, January 30th. I can verify the meeting notice requirements were met. I can verify that we have a quorum of the Board of Directors. Jackie Cahill is absent. I would ask that the board move forward with the approval of the previous minutes of December 12th, 2017. Do I have a first? Do I have a second? All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. We're going to get right into it. We're going to go right first to the IRMA update. So the status of the urban cleanup. Stump removal throughout the community continues. They're on Quartz Cove section of the community right now, going down Limestone, Treeside, the different sections over there. I'm sorry, not Limestone, but Treeside, Crystal Court. They only have a couple more streets to do. They still have to get on Weatherstone and finish that, and Marblestone, but then they should be complete within the next 2 weeks. Boat ramp dock repairs are to take place this week. J&M boat lift is out. They should be taking the dock. They hopefully can fix it on site, but they might need to take it off site for repairs. Missing streetlight fixtures and replacement. Poles are not expected until mid-February. Various light fixtures at both gatehouses were replaced last week. Street sign repair is complete. If you notice anything out of the ordinary with any of the street signs, if it's missing a cross section of the street, let us know in the office. We can get with our vendor about that. Items covered under the insurance policy. Completion date is to be decided still. We still have some outstanding items with our insurance vendor. Non-insurable exposure of $100,000 remains. This does not include tree replacements. We can talk about that total of $170,000. Again, that number does not include any of the tree replacements. The general cleanup, the stump removal, the dumping fees, the tree staking, and the repairs of irrigation have far exceeded what our original expectations were. Status of insurance claims. All insurable items with estimates have been submitted to our carrier. Calendar year combined deductible of $25,000 must be met before anything else can take place. Individual deductibles are as follows. The Beach Club deductible is $35,000. Guardhouse number 1 is $2,000. Guardhouse number 2 is $1,866. Tennis Pro Shop is $4,940, which leaves us with a total insured deductible exposure of $43,969. Before we get into litigation expenses, I would open up to the floor for any questions that we have about any urban cleanup.
Hey, Tim Jersey.
Yes.
The lights out at the front on Immokalee on the, what do you call those signs? They were, couple nights ago we came in, they were out.
This is the Corey marquee sign.
Yeah.
We can take a look at that, see what's going on in Breaker Pit.
All across the front.
Okay. I know it's been on, but we'll find out. We'll get Lee on it tomorrow. Any other questions? Sir?
Did you get any bids other than J&M boat repair for the ramp?
No, sir. J&M was our primary contact.
So you didn't select any other quotes from any other vendors?
No, sir. Sir?
I live on Coastline Court, and the hurricane took all those trees away. Now there's really no security. Trucks are still up in Limestone Trail at 3 o'clock in the morning and empty out this house.
Sure.
Nothing to impede them at all, so they're going to replace the trees.
We're going to touch on that landscaping section a little bit later in the meeting. But I give you a brief breakdown that the landscape committee has done a complete property tour. and they're going to be presenting at a landscape committee to the board liaison their suggestions for replacement and the areas to concentrate on first, and then the board will have the decision as far as what areas we concentrate, whether it's bushes, trees, shrubs, whatever sections that may be, will ultimately be the board's call. Okay? Okay, we're going to move on to
How much is the bid for repairing the dock?
the dock. It was around $7,000.
Why did you get another bid?
I'm sorry?
Why did you get another bid?
We were very strapped with even being able to get that vendor to do a bid for us. We were looking at 4 months out for some other vendors to be able to come out and just give us a bid, let alone repair it. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to
One more.
the litigation. We're gonna move on to the next topic. We can ask it at the end.
Thank you, Adam. Good afternoon, everyone. We want to move now to talking about where we stand with litigation expenses. The legal fees in 2017 and 18, the estimated expenditures total $347,000, and that's broken down by the actual legal fees themselves and then the consultant fees and reports that we paid for. As of 12/31/17, the spending is at $139,000, and our current outlook for our year here coming up is that we will meet the $347,000. Okay, the next steps in the lawsuits. The QCA filed a complaint, as you all know, earlier this year, or last year in May, against the parties that were identified by Centex Pulte as being liable for the defects outlined in our expert reports. Pulte filed a motion to stay. Pulte filed a motion to stay to comply with the voting requirement under Florida statutes as a means to stay the litigation. Buljanek, our attorneys, filed an opposition to the motion based on Florida case law. They argued that it must be a member of the association that files the complaint, not the defendant. However, the judge did grant Centex Pulte's motion to stay until the vote was held. As you are likely aware, the vote was held in November of 2017, and Corey homeowners voted overwhelmingly in favor to pursue the litigation. Again, that was in November 2017. I believe the vote was 501 votes total, 459 yes votes to proceed, and 42 no votes. Buljanek then filed a motion to lift the stay with the court. That was just done recently. Following the vote in November, they had to provide all the exhibits and evidence in court to get the judge to lift the stay. That included meeting minutes and those kind of things from the November meeting, the proxy and so forth. The motion then is circulated to determine if there are any objections. And if there are no objections, we can move forward with the agreed order. If there are objections received, then a hearing will be held for the judge to confirm the statute was met and enter an order lifting the stay. And at that time, the complaint will be amended to add parties identified by Centex Pulte as having exposure to liability. Buljanek will then add allegations to newly discovered defects pertaining to the boat ramps and the sidewalks and correct the scrivener's errors. The discovery phase of litigation then will follow. The defendant must respond to our discovery requests when the stay is lifted. They'll be looking for information that may impact our liability and damages analysis and analyze if additional parties need to be added to the lawsuit. Analyzing documents for key individuals that need to be deposed, as well as additional entities that need to be subpoenaed, and exhibits to use in support of our liability and damage arguments. The defendants will also request documents and information from the QCA. The discovery phase, as those of you who are lawyers in the room, is the longest phase and typically takes at least 6 to 9 months. Once the stay is lifted, Baljanik will file a motion to designate the case complex, which requests the court to mandate a case management order. This will set hard deadlines to ensure the case moves as efficiently and expeditiously as possible. Baljanik will provide an updated report with an outline of key deadlines when that order is entered. So before we move to the next subject, excuse me, I don't know why I got this hoarse voice for the last 2 days. Does anybody have any questions? Yes, Diane?
The $347,000 that was spent last year on legal fees, that has nothing to do with this lawsuit. It's separate?
Well, the $347,000 hasn't been spent in its entirety. That is what we anticipate will be the result of the 2017 and 2018 expenses. And it was based on the $386 assessment that you just recently had to pay to fund the lawsuit through the end of this year.
So what portion of that, is it all for the lawsuit, the 347?
The $347,000 is all legal expenses and consulting reports.
Just for the lawsuit?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
So what are the attorneys projecting for a timeline to see this through completion?
Well, they're not at this time. They can only tell us that.
I mean, well, we budgeted through 2018.
18,
So is it gonna
I
be
don't know.
19,
Could be
20,
2019, I don't know. I can't answer that. They have a lot of experience against cases against Pulte. And their experience has been that they tend to drag it out. They tend to hope that people will give up and lose interest. But there's very rarely ever a case, and in fact, I think they said with Pulte, never been a case that has gone to a jury trial. So they will settle.
So when they say drag it out, I mean, what's their experience in terms of how long it drags out? I mean, what we, in terms of having to budget into the future, are we talking 2 years, 5 years?
We don't know that yet. We don't know.
But based on their experience, they must have some expectation that this will be the minimum, and this will be, you know.
I mean, every case is different, so.
I understand that, but I mean, at least they can come up with.
Yes.
They did give us an initial estimate of 18 months.
18?
Yeah, okay, all right. Thank you.
In their talk.
Pardon?
In their talk.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Isn't it true that Baljanik will get 20% of the settlement that is finally decided on?
Yes, we recently signed a contingency agreement with them that is retroactive to 10/1 of 2017. And beginning on 10/1/2017, we began paying 50% of the normal standard legal fees, and they will in turn get 20% of whatever we are awarded. Thank you. Okay, yes.
What is their legal fee? How much an hour are you paying?
Well, it depends on who's involved in the case. It can go as high as the very top managing partner, Jim Pritchard, whose fee is around $540 an hour, to the person who is our lawyer, who we work with every day, just about on this. She's at $240 an hour. Also with, and then you get down into paralegals and so forth, and then you get down to the $100 per hour time frame. And then we are paying half of that fee as we sign this contingency agreement. So the $240 becomes $120 an hour. Very seldom is Jim Pritchard at the $500 an hour. Very seldom is he involved in this. And when things become complex, like our dealings with the CDD and some of those issues, then he may have to kick in because he has that knowledge. Yes, sir.
Cheryl, can you explain how Centix got to stay so early in this litigation? What wasn't done right for them to get a stay?
Well, it was the vote. They said the vote needed to take place before we could pursue the litigation. And then Paul Janet argued back that Pulte doesn't have legal standing to say that. It would have to be a member of the association. However, the judge did agree with Pulte and put a stay in place until we had the vote, which occurred in November.
Isn't that part of sunshine law, that what should have been done?
Sunshine laws don't apply to associations. The Florida Statute 720 is what applies to the association. Yes. Okay, I'm going to turn it over now for the next presentation, and if there are additional questions, we'll take those at the end.
Good afternoon. Okay, we're going to go through the final results for 2017 on the left-hand column against the original budget. And so as we go through this, again, those of you that have been at the meetings, I always gave an outlook on what the full year would be, and I know I typically go right to the bottom line. That number at the bottom line is very different than I had been forecasting. If you recall, I've been forecasting a number of about a loss of about $200,000. And I just want to explain why that's different. Two things. Number one, because we voted to go ahead with the litigation, we removed those legal expenses from the normal operating income, which was a total of $95,000. You're going to see that elsewhere from now on. The other thing is an unintended consequence of Hurricane Irma. We spent a lot of money on cleanup, and that'll appear elsewhere as well. But since everyone was so busy with the cleanup, we didn't spend money for our normal landscaping, irrigation, repair, and maintenance during the months of the back end of September, October, and November. So we wound up spending $60,000 to $70,000 less than ordinary. We just couldn't. Everyone was working on everything else, and we were just doing the cleanup. So that's why this looks much better. If you take those two numbers, roughly it's about $150,000 that we don't have on this statement. So we actually did a little bit better than we were forecasting as we were proceeding through the year. So again, when you look at this, these numbers, just the total revenue, pretty close. Where the biggest difference is food and beverage was up a nice amount from last year, up 79%. Really did well. And the other big favorable thing on the revenue side is transfers. And that's the $1,500 we get with each transfer of property or sale of property. And we did a lot better than we originally had estimated. On the flip side, if you go down, we spent more on food and beverage, which you would expect when you're selling more. And then all the other line items that you see on here. Nothing really is different in this statement than all the other ones that have been presented previously, other than those two main factors I mentioned at the beginning. Okay, really the only thing that's important about this chart, I don't want to make you all accountants because I know you don't want to be accountants. But the important thing here is that green line. And what that green line is, what our cost of sales in this particular chart is of food. And if you look over here, we had a terrible trend. It was going up, it wasn't stable. The one thing that's very encouraging is if you look at the last half of the year, our budget had been this line, 50% cost of sales for food, and it was 48, 47, 46 or whatever, and it went down quite a bit in December because of New Year's Eve. But the most important thing is we have a stable operation. And now we have a new food and beverage manager that's focused on that. We hope to continue in that direction. It's absolutely critical. By the same token, you'll see the same pattern in our beverage cost of sales. We have the green line was really getting out of control in terms of how much we're spending per dollar of intake for food for a beverage. And it has gotten a lot better. I wouldn't bank on December number. I don't quite believe it. I think it must be a carryover of some problem in the previous month. But we are headed in the right direction. There's a lot of focus on that because we need to improve the food and beverage, and we think with the exposure to the information and the new people involved in that, we're going in the right direction here. So we're pretty happy about that. So if we put it all together, food and beverage, again, we've been sharing this all along, and everyone's always wanted to know, how does it compare to last year? You know, what is this amenity costing us? And it is an amenity. We are doing better than last year. Yes, there is a loss. It's lower. But one of the things here this year that we were frankly a little disappointed was what our cost of goods sold was for food and beverage. It was higher than our plan. And if you look at it, the second half of the year was, as I just explained, a lot better. And we're forecast to improve a lot over the coming year. Not a lot, to continue where we were the last half of the year. So we think we're being conservative. Our food cost of sales was 52%. Our budget for next year is 50%. Our beverage was 40%, and we're keeping the same there. So we're not anticipating any great improvement other than what we've been hitting the last 6 months. We have some opportunity in food with more careful management there. But that's how we round up in terms of food and beverage. Okay, in terms of collections, we know, and we do apologize, you guys got a lot of coupon books in the mail. And I'm just as frustrated as you when I get a big book and there's only one page in it, okay? It seems like a waste and all of those things. And then there were so many, we did get confused. So, you know, we didn't anticipate all of these events, and we certainly have to get better in how we do that going forward. Because of that confusion, we're monitoring how we're collecting the money for both Hurricane Irma and litigation and special assessments. There's what we billed. And about a week ago, here's how much we had collected for each of these two. And this is running behind because, number one, it wasn't due till the first of the year. And number two, we know some of you got, probably all of us got the bill 1 or 2 weeks late. So we expect it to come in a little bit later. So here's how many doors we build, and you know, we watch these things, we're looking at our cash, actually we're looking at your cash much more closely to make sure we collect it in a timely manner. So, you know, we encourage everyone, if you haven't paid yet, please step up to the bar, make the payments. We're always open to take those checks or whatever method. We thank you for that. Okay, that was the collection status for the special assessments. This is our collection status for the normal annual dues, the quarterly payment. And as you can see, we have about $250,000 still outstanding on our annual dues, and some of it goes all the way back to the Tiki Bar. Quite frankly, we'll probably never collect it. It's not a big number, it's $7,000 and some change. But again, those are the things that we as a board look at and make sure as a community, we're making sure everyone pays their fair share, and if not, we have to go through certain steps to make sure we do collect. So where does that leave us with the line of credit? We were fortunate, now we took out that loan before we needed the money, that's when you take out a line of credit, and we took it out on June 28th. And the requirement that we've gone over in past meetings is that you have to be paying down that loan for 30 days, 30 consecutive days within every calendar year. Because we didn't draw that line down until we needed it after the hurricane, we actually met that obligation for the 12 months that now would end October 2018. So we're in good shape there. We expect, and I don't know if it's going to go through tomorrow, to pay down the entire line of credit tomorrow. It's cost us $2,000 a month in interest. We don't want to pay it. We have over $1 million in the bank, and we're in a good position right now to pay it down, and hopefully we won't need it for the next year. But that's our basic cash management insurance policy, and we should have that line outstanding. So we're in good shape relative to that. Okay, so I think this is the last number slide, is if we look at the budget going forward, this is the first time we can compare next year to what really happened this year. And we're obligated to budget to break even each year. We know we increased all of our assessments quite a bit to cover some catch-up for prior years. So we expect to be a break-even business, and that's our obligation as a board to manage it, to make sure it does come out that way. So that's where we are. The biggest risk, or the biggest issue we have that was brought up, is there's a lot of trees that need to be replaced out there. There's a lot of landscaping to be done. We'll probably have to spread those costs over the next 2 or 3 years to see how we do that. And again, some of those numbers, I see some people honing in. I'll just point out, this is an unfair comparison, because if you go into 2017, we had salary expense scattered throughout this statement. And what we're doing for 2018, anything to do with the people side of it, is all in one line, so we can see it clearly. It was basically all over, and it made for understanding very difficult. So I don't want anyone to think we're increasing our payroll by the difference between those 2 years. It really is no change. It's the same level of staff we had, we're going to have in 18 as we had in 17. The other numbers are all pretty much, the big difference is here. We increased the reserve, that's why your assessment was higher. When we budgeted food and beverage, this budget was started on, I think, in September. We didn't anticipate we'd do that well in food and beverage, so actually you see this year our budget has a number lower than we actually achieved in 2017. So we're hoping we beat that. We're hoping you all get out and join the fine dining that we have here. The reserve we're increasing, so that's where we are. The biggest expense increase will be in this section because we have some increases coming for our landscaping irrigation contract. We have tree trimming that we didn't have this year. We're buying some new equipment. We have sand replenishment, and we're doing pressure washing of the whole quarry. So all those things are adding up to extra costs in 2018 versus 2017. Going forward, you won't see the expenses for either the litigation or a hurricane cleanup on the base financial statement. It's going to carry over from what we did in 17 into 18, so it's cumulative. We're going to show you how we're doing by filling in this sheet. Okay, so we'll do that as we go through each month. That's how we'll share that information with you. Okay, so that's what I want to share financially. Any questions? Yes, sir.
So were you able to determine why that big spike in the cost of food and beverage?
That was a bit, no, we were never able to determine that. It was also a month where there was very small activity, so a few $1,000s would make the percentage look really, really out of line. Yes, sir.
On the one slide where you had the assessments, and there were past due numbers, I think it was the Fiji board, he said, it was 4,000 or 7,000.
7,000, yes.
And he said, quite frankly, we're not going to go after that. You seem to move on right after that statement.
Okay, let me just change the wording. It's not that we're not going to go after it. We do go after everything. We have to follow statute, what happens in 60 days, 90 days, etc., through the attorneys. And Adam, help me here. There is in the statute, if it's over 12 months.
Yeah, in statute is a law called safe harbor. So if your home goes into foreclosure and the banks take possession, that 12 months or 1% of your mortgage is all that the association can collect on past due assessments that were not paid to the homeowner association. So that number could be astronomical, but once the bank finally takes over possession of the property, we're only able to collect so much.
So that's why that's getting past that year time frame. I don't want to give the impression we are going to go after everything we can through the normal course, the legal process that we have to go through. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, if we're not collecting this, I know there's a process through the state and what the statutes say you have to do. Are we taking some of the amenities away, the privileges that they have, like gate access, that they have to go through the S gate and have to make it a little more difficult and that they won't pay it?
We do that to the extent we have to follow the law of the state of Florida. So we're doing everything in concert with what we can do.
But you can't take privileges.
Hold on, yes. What we're doing is, that's why we did the transponder issues and got everything done, yes, we are taking away the recreational passes along with the transponders. We cannot stop them from not coming into the property, however, we can make it inconvenient, so they have to go to the guard. That is already in place.
Right, and how big does it have to get after so many days? Is it $1,000 that you turn it over to an attorney and put a lien on the house?
It's a time frame. I don't think it's a dollar limit.
We start the legal proceedings after 60 days of one assessment past due.
Yes, sir. Tom?
Two things. The explanation that Adam gave, it's conditional. There are some things that the foreclosing lender must have done in order to benefit by the limitation that's involved. And I can share that with you, the specifics. The other thing is that if somebody is not paid for 90 days, the board can take away their right to vote. Without any approvals, the board just has to decide that Smith, excuse me, there may be a Smith here, whoever you are, show back. If he doesn't pay, then if he's 90 days behind, his vote can be suspended.
We do that, Tom. That's technically why our quorum number slides a little bit up and a little bit down.
So that is happening.
Correct.
Okay.
Anybody else? Yes.
Late fees, have they been incurred? Are we following up on those? Are we adding those? Are we doing a 30-day grace period? What's going on here? So we all know how late we can pay. How late.
That's an interesting question. The late fees start after 30 days, right, Adam?
Correct.
And we are assessing those, but what you said is, Laura, it's Laura, right? What you said is very interesting, because when we say a due date of X, people know they could go X plus 30 days and not incur it. So we've started a discussion, should it be late fees after 15 days? You know, there are some people, every single quarter, they pay a month in advance. You could bring it to the bank, it's the same number every quarter. So, you know, that's a discussion item. But again, we're trying to manage your cash as best as we can, because otherwise we have to borrow and we all pay.
Well, as of January 24th, you have 134 doors that haven't paid their umbrella association. That's a lot of doors. That's a big percentage. It's 24 days past due.
And we have one gentleman, he couldn't be here today, Ed Walters, on the Finance Committee. His focus, he prepared that page. We have one person dedicated to being on top of that and working with Adam and then the attorneys in terms of making sure we're following the process.
As far as the late fees go, though, is that an association implementation or are there Florida statutes?
Laura, late fees are always at the discretion of the association.
I think we have some.
There's a little bit more that goes into it, but the collection policy was adopted by the board in June of 2017, and it's custom to the quarry. Other communities have a little bit more aggressive, some are a lot less aggressive.
I just hate to see us paying interest on a loan that we don't need to.
That's